The sea was calm that night, deceptively so, as the Roberts family boarded the Ocean Voyager for what was supposed to be the vacation of a lifetime. Lily Roberts, just 9 years old, with her bright eyes and endless curiosity, smiled for her father's camera one last time before they stepped onto the massive cruise ship. That photograph would later become the centerpiece of a mystery that would haunt her family, law enforcement, and eventually the entire nation. By all accounts, Lily was happy that evening, excited about the Caribbean adventure ahead, chattering non-stop about the kids' club activities, begging her older brother to take her to see the dolphins they might spot from the deck. No one could have predicted that within 48 hours she would vanish without a trace, leaving behind nothing but questions, heartbreak, and one chilling detail that investigators couldn't explain. The ship's security cameras captured her walking down a corridor at 10:37 p.m. on the second night of the cruise, holding her favorite stuffed rabbit, and then nothing. For months, theories circulated. Did she somehow fall overboard in a tragic accident? Was she sleepwalking, as her mother mentioned she occasionally did at home? Or was something far more sinister at play on the Ocean Voyager? The cruise line insisted their ships were safe, their security protocols impeccable, especially for young passengers. Michael and Karen Roberts refused to accept that their daughter could simply disappear on a vessel carrying over 3,000 passengers and 1,000 crew members. Someone had to have seen something. Someone had to know what happened to Lily. But as weeks turned to months with no answers, the case grew cold, media attention waned, and the Roberts family was left adrift in their grief and uncertainty. That is, until 9 months after Lily's disappearance, when a routine maintenance check of the Ocean Voyager's emergency equipment revealed something that would reignite the investigation and change everything. A child's doll, carefully placed inside a rarely inspected lifeboat, wrapped in a piece of fabric that would later be confirmed as matching the distinctive pattern of the pajamas Lily was wearing the night she vanished. What did this macabre discovery mean? Who put it there, and why? Had it been there all along, or was it placed recently? Most importantly, was Lily Roberts still alive? These questions would launch a new and urgent phase of an investigation that would uncover secrets about the Ocean Voyager, its crew, and a deadly pattern that had gone unnoticed for years. The story I'm about to tell you isn't just about a mysterious disappearance. It's about a family's relentless pursuit of truth, about the dark corners of a world most travelers never see, and about how a single, seemingly insignificant object, a child's doll, would ultimately lead to answers that were more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Before we dive into this harrowing tale, I want to thank you for joining us. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to our channel for more in-depth investigations into some of the most perplexing mysteries of our time. Now let's return to where it all began, with a family, a cruise ship, and a young girl who stepped into the night and never returned. Michael and Karen Roberts had saved for years to take this family vacation. With their son Jason about to start high school and daughter Lily finishing 3rd grade with perfect attendance and glowing reports, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to celebrate their achievements and create lasting memories together. Lily had been especially excited about the trip, counting down the days on her rainbow calendar, carefully selecting which stuffed animals would join the journey, and watching videos about the destinations with wide-eyed wonder. Security footage from the cruise terminal showed the family checking in together, Lily's blonde pigtails bouncing as she skipped alongside her mother, dressed in her favorite yellow sundress with butterfly appliques, clutching her well-loved stuffed rabbit named Hoppy, while her father and brother handled the luggage. She was so full of life that day, Michael would later tell investigators, his voice breaking. So excited about everything. I keep replaying that moment in my head, wondering if there was any sign, any indication of what was coming. There wasn't. She was just happy, a normal little girl, my Lily. The Ocean Voyager departed Miami on schedule at 4:30 p.m. on Sunday, July 7th. The first day and a half of the cruise proceeded without incident. The Roberts family attended the sail-away party on the main deck, had dinner at one of the ship's family restaurants, and spent the following day exploring the massive vessel. According to ship records and witness statements, Lily participated in several children's programs that Monday, making crafts in the morning and attending a supervised swim session in the afternoon. She later joined her family for the evening's magic show, where she was delighted to be called on stage as the magician's assistant for a simple card trick. This is where the timeline of Lily's last known movements becomes crucial and contested. The family returned to their cabins around 9:15 p.m. Karen Roberts helped Lily shower and change into her distinctive cloud-patterned blue pajamas. They read a bedtime story together, and by 9:45 p.m., Lily was tucked into the lower bunk of the cabin she shared with her 16-year-old brother Jason, who was planning to return later after attending a teens-only movie night. Karen and Michael retired to their connected cabin next door, leaving the adjoining door cracked open so they could hear Lily if she called out. This was the last time Karen would see her daughter. At approximately 10:30 p.m., Michael checked on Lily before he and Karen went to sleep. He reported that she appeared to be sleeping peacefully, Hoppy the rabbit clutched under her arm. The ship's security cameras would later reveal the puzzling next chapter. At 10:37 p.m., just minutes after Michael's check, cameras captured Lily walking alone down the corridor outside their cabin. She was in her pajamas, still clutching Hoppy, but appeared to be fully awake, not in the dazed state often associated with sleepwalking. She walked with purpose, as if heading to a specific destination or following someone just out of the camera's view. This footage would be the last confirmed sighting of Lily Roberts. The Roberts family awoke the next morning, Tuesday, to find Lily's bed empty. Jason, who had returned to the cabin around midnight, reported that he hadn't noticed his sister was missing when he came in, assuming the small lump in her bed was Lily curled up under the covers with her stuffed animals as she often slept. Initial concern quickly escalated to panic as the family searched their cabins, then the immediate vicinity, calling Lily's name with increasing desperation. By 8 a.m., they had reported her missing to the ship's security team. By 10 a.m., a ship-wide search was underway. By 3 p.m., with the Ocean Voyager docked in San Juan, Puerto Rico, the FBI had been notified of a potential missing child case in international waters. The initial investigation faced immediate challenges. Despite the cruise line's assurances about comprehensive security, the Ocean Voyager's camera system had significant blind spots. While cameras captured Lily leaving the corridor where her family's cabin was located, they lost track of her when she entered a stairwell. The next set of cameras, which should have shown which floor she exited on, had been experiencing intermittent outages, a technical issue the cruise line had documented but not yet resolved. In the crucial first hours of the investigation, as FBI agents boarded the ship in Puerto Rico, passengers were kept aboard, delaying scheduled excursions as authorities conducted interviews and searches. Every cabin was inspected, every crew member questioned, and age-appropriate photos of Lily were distributed to everyone on board. A helicopter from the Coast Guard scanned the waters along the ship's route, operating on the grim possibility that the child had somehow gone overboard. Parents of other young children held them closer, haunted by the unthinkable question: if a 9-year-old could vanish on this massive vessel, was anyone truly safe? The investigation quickly expanded to include a comprehensive review of all security footage, staff interviews focusing on the children's areas of the ship, and thorough searches of mechanical spaces, storage areas, and other locations not typically accessible to passengers. One particularly disturbing possibility emerged early, Could Lily have been sleepwalking and accidentally accessed a dangerous area of the ship? Karen Roberts had mentioned to investigators that Lily occasionally sleepwalked at home, especially when excited or overstimulated, conditions certainly present on the cruise. However, the security footage contradicted this theory. Lily's movements appeared deliberate, not the wandering gait typical of a sleepwalker. Days turned into weeks with no sign of Lily Roberts. The ship continued its planned itinerary after a 2-day delay in Puerto Rico, carrying away potential witnesses and evidence. The Roberts family, devastated and desperate for answers, remained behind to work with investigators, giving heart-wrenching interviews to local and national media, and launching what would become a years-long campaign to find their daughter. "We will never stop looking for Lily," Karen Roberts told reporters, clutching Lily's spare stuffed rabbit, an identical backup they traveled with in case Hoppy ever got lost. "Someone knows something. Someone saw something. Please, if you were on that ship, if you remember anything at all, come forward. Help us bring our little girl home." As the investigation progressed, disturbing questions began to emerge about the Ocean Voyager and its parent company, Atlantic Cruise Lines. This was not, it turned out, the first disappearance on one of their ships. Over the previous decade, there had been 3 other missing persons cases. One involving a 14-year-old boy who was eventually found hiding on the ship after an argument with his parents, but 2 others remained unsolved. While Atlantic Cruise Lines maintained these were tragic accidents, the pattern raised red flags for investigators. Lily's case also revealed troubling gaps in maritime security protocols, particularly regarding the monitoring of minors. Despite the cruise industry's marketing emphasis on family-friendly environments and children's programs, the reality aboard these floating cities was far more complex. Youth staff were often overworked and undertrained, security systems had significant blind spots, and procedures for monitoring children outside of structured activities were inconsistent at best. One former Ocean Voyager youth coordinator, speaking on condition of anonymity, told investigators, "We do our best with the resources we have, but the truth is, once parents take their kids from the programs, they're responsible for them. We can't possibly keep track of every child on a ship this size at all times." For the Roberts family, these systemic problems were secondary to their singular focus, finding Lily. They hired a private investigator, created a website dedicated to the case, and coordinated an extensive social media campaign that kept their daughter's story alive long after traditional media had moved on to other news. They distributed flyers with Lily's photo in every port the Ocean Voyager visited, hoping to reach crew members who might have information. They consulted child psychology experts about possible scenarios, followed up on even the most unlikely tips, and mortgaged their home to offer a $100,000 reward for information leading to Lily's whereabouts. Meanwhile, their legal team pressured Atlantic Cruise Lines for access to personnel records, maintenance logs, and complete, unedited security footage. Their efforts met with resistance at every turn, with the company citing privacy laws, proprietary information, and ongoing litigation concerns. "They care more about protecting their reputation than finding my daughter," Michael Roberts said after one particularly frustrating meeting with cruise line executives. How do they sleep at night knowing a child vanished on their watch? As the first anniversary of Lily's disappearance approached, the case had grown cold. The FBI maintained that the investigation remained open, but acknowledged privately to the family that without new evidence, they had exhausted most viable leads. The prevailing theory among investigators was that Lily had somehow fallen overboard, a devastating possibility that her family refused to accept without conclusive evidence. Lily was afraid of the water, Karen insisted. She wouldn't have gone near the railings alone. She knew better. Someone took her from us. Someone knows where she is. Then 9 months and 18 days after Lily vanished, came the discovery that would shatter the case wide open and set in motion a chain of events that would finally bring answers, if not peace. The Ocean Voyager was undergoing routine maintenance during a scheduled dry dock in Freeport, Bahamas. Timothy Gaines, a 23-year veteran maritime safety inspector, was conducting a standard check of the ship's emergency equipment, a tedious but critical process involving the inspection of lifeboats, life rafts, emergency communications systems, and evacuation procedures. Gaines had inspected dozens of cruise ships over his long career and approached his work with methodical precision. Following protocol, he was examining each of the Ocean Voyager's 42 lifeboats, checking mechanisms, supplies, and overall condition. It was in Lifeboat 37 on the starboard side of Deck 12 that he made the discovery that would reignite the investigation. Tucked inside an emergency supply compartment, partially hidden beneath a folded thermal blanket, was a child's doll, a simple, cloth-bodied figure with a plastic face, the kind sold in gift shops throughout the Caribbean. What immediately struck Gaines as odd was not just the presence of the doll, which could have been left by a child during a lifeboat drill, but what the doll was wrapped in, a strip of fabric in a distinctive blue cloud pattern. The fabric appeared to have been deliberately tied around the doll like a blanket or shawl. Gaines, aware of ongoing investigations involving the vessel, reported the unusual find to his supervisor, who contacted the cruise line's security department. Within hours, the FBI had been notified, and the doll and fabric were secured as potential evidence. Initial analysis by the FBI's forensic team confirmed what the Roberts family immediately suspected when they were shown photographs. The fabric matched the distinctive pattern of the pajamas Lily had been wearing on the night she disappeared. DNA testing would later confirm traces of Lily's skin cells and hair on both the fabric and, more surprisingly, on the face of the doll itself, suggesting she had handled it. The doll's discovery electrified the investigation. How had it gotten into a lifeboat that, according to maintenance logs, had not been deployed or used for any purpose since well before the Roberts family's cruise? Who had placed it there, and why? Was it a clue deliberately left by someone with knowledge of Lily's fate? Or was it something more sinister, a trophy of sorts placed by someone involved in her disappearance? Media attention, which had waned in the months since Lily's disappearance, returned with full force. The story of the doll made headlines internationally, with speculation running rampant. The pressure on Atlantic cruise lines intensified, and this time, facing a public relations nightmare and renewed scrutiny from maritime safety agencies, the company took unprecedented steps to cooperate. They granted investigators full access to personnel records, including those of employees who had left the company since Lily's disappearance. They provided complete maintenance logs for Lifeboat 37 and surrounding areas. Most significantly, they allowed FBI agents to quietly board several of their vessels to interview crew members without prior notice, something they had resisted during the initial investigation. The breakthrough came 6 weeks after the doll's discovery. FBI agents, reviewing personnel records and cross-referencing them with duty rosters from the night Lily disappeared, identified 4 crew members who had been in the vicinity of both the stairwell where Lily was last seen on camera and the area of Lifeboat 37 within the critical time frame. One of these crew members particularly drew their attention, Elena Vasquez, a 32-year-old custodial worker who had been employed by Atlantic Cruise Lines for nearly 5 years. Vasquez had an unremarkable employment record with the cruise line, but further investigation revealed something the company's background check had missed. She had previously worked under a slightly different name at a children's residential facility in Mexico that had been shut down following allegations of abuse and neglect. Most damning was the discovery that Vasquez had been aboard 2 of the Atlantic cruise ships during the time frames when passengers had disappeared over the past decade. When FBI agents attempted to locate Vasquez for questioning, they discovered she had abruptly resigned from Atlantic Cruise Lines 2 weeks after the doll was found, citing a family emergency in her native Mexico. She had cleared out her Miami apartment and seemingly vanished. International cooperation was quickly established with Mexican authorities, but initial efforts to locate Vasquez in her hometown of Veracruz were unsuccessful. Her family claimed they hadn't seen her in years, despite financial records showing she had regularly sent money to an address associated with her mother. The investigation now shifted into a manhunt spanning multiple countries, with Interpol issuing a blue notice seeking information on Vasquez's whereabouts. Meanwhile, forensic investigators continued their painstaking examination of Lifeboat 37 and surrounding areas of the Ocean Voyager. Using advanced techniques not employed during the initial investigation, they discovered minute traces of blood in barely accessible crevices near the lifeboat's mounting mechanism. Blood that DNA testing would confirm belonged to Lily Roberts. The quantity was small, consistent with a minor injury rather than a life-threatening wound, but its presence was undeniable evidence that Lily had been in this precise location, contradicting the cruise line's initial claim that she had likely fallen overboard elsewhere. As investigators reconstructed the events of that night, a disturbing theory emerged. Electronic logs showed that cleaning systems in the lifeboat area had been accessed at 11:13 p.m., just 36 minutes after Lily was last seen on security cameras. Vasquez, whose work duties included late-night cleaning of various ship areas, had been logged as on shift that night, with access to all passenger decks. Had she encountered Lily alone in the stairwell? Had she somehow lured the child to the more isolated lifeboat area? And if Vasquez was involved in Lily's disappearance, what had happened to the 9-year-old girl? With the confirmation that Lily had been at Lifeboat 37, search efforts intensified on the ship itself. The vessel was thoroughly examined again, with particular attention to areas that might serve as hiding places. Ventilation shafts, equipment rooms, rarely accessed storage spaces. Nothing was found. The more disturbing possibility that Lily had been smuggled off the ship at one of its ports of call gained traction. Border security footage from each port visited by the Ocean Voyager after Lily's disappearance was reviewed, with particular attention to adult-child pairs that didn't match pre-boarding records. 4 months after the doll's discovery, 13 months after Lily vanished, came another breakthrough. A facial recognition hit flagged a woman matching Vasquez's description passing through a small border crossing between Mexico and Guatemala, accompanied by a child whose face was largely obscured but whose physical measurements were consistent with Lily's, allowing for a year's growth. International authorities working in concert with the FBI traced the pair to a small village in the Guatemalan highlands. When they raided the location, they found Elena Vasquez, and evidence far more disturbing than anyone had anticipated. The modest home contained a locked room with a child-sized bed, toys and clothing appropriate for a girl around 10 years old. Most chilling were a series of photographs showing Elena with a young girl whose appearance had been altered. Her naturally blonde hair dyed dark brown, her distinctive freckles concealed with makeup. The girl was not present during the raid, but witnesses in the village reported seeing Elena with a child she had claimed was her niece, recently orphaned. They said the pair had departed hurriedly just days before, after Elena had received a phone call that seemed to upset her greatly. Given these discoveries, Vasquez was arrested and extradited to the United States to face questioning in Lily's disappearance. Initially maintaining her innocence, claiming the child was indeed her niece and not Lily Roberts, Vasquez's story collapsed when faced with the mounting evidence. In a plea arrangement that would potentially reduce her sentence, Vasquez finally revealed the truth about what happened to Lily Roberts and, as investigators had begun to suspect, about her own troubled history. According to Vasquez's confession, she had become fixated on Lily after observing her with her family during the first day of the cruise. Vasquez, who had lost custody of her own daughter years earlier, due to mental health issues, saw in Lily a chance to reclaim the motherhood she felt had been unjustly taken from her. On the night Lily disappeared, Vasquez had been cleaning near the family's cabins when she noticed Lily emerge alone, seemingly looking for the bathroom. Using her staff status to gain the child's trust, Vasquez had offered to help, instead leading Lily to a service elevator and then to the more isolated area near Lifeboat 37. When Lily became frightened and tried to return to her parents, a struggle ensued, during which Lily fell and hit her head on the metal housing of the lifeboat mechanism, explaining the blood evidence found there. The injury wasn't severe, but it had left the child dazed and frightened. Rather than seeking medical help, Vasquez had hidden Lily in a rarely used storage area accessible only to crew, returning later with sedatives stolen from the ship's medical facility. Her plan, she claimed, had never been to harm Lily, but to save her from what Vasquez had irrationally perceived as an unhappy family situation, projecting her own troubled past to the Roberts family without any basis in reality. Vasquez admitted to smuggling the sedated child off the ship during the Puerto Rico port stop, using her crew credentials to bypass normal security with what appeared to be a sleeping child she claimed was her sick daughter. She had taken Lily first to Mexico and later to Guatemala, keeping her isolated, altering her appearance, and convincing the disoriented and frightened child that her family had abandoned her and that Vasquez was now her new mother. The final phase of the investigation became a desperate race to find Lily Roberts. Based on Vasquez's information and evidence found in her possession, authorities narrowed their search to a coastal region of southern Mexico. 3 days of intense searching by Mexican police with FBI coordination culminated in the raid of a small house located in a fishing village where Vasquez's cousin lived. Inside, they found evidence someone had been staying there recently and signs of a hasty departure. A joint task force expanded the search to nearby communities, operating on the theory that Vasquez had collaborators who had moved Lily after her arrest. 17 days later, in a remote farming settlement accessible only by unpaved roads, authorities found a modest home belonging to an elderly woman who was discovered to be Vasquez's maternal aunt. Inside was a young girl, her hair dyed dark, confused and frightened by the sudden intrusion, but physically unharmed. Despite the changes to her appearance, there was no doubt. They had found Lily Roberts, alive, 15 months after she had vanished from the Ocean Voyager. The reunion between Lily and her family was private, away from media cameras, but described later by an FBI victim specialist as both joyful and profoundly emotional. While physically unharmed, Lily had suffered psychological trauma. She had been told her family didn't want her anymore, that they had been paid by the cruise line to give her up. A cruel lie meant to break her attachment to her real family and foster dependence on Vasquez. In the months and years that followed, the consequences of the case rippled outward. Elena Vasquez was convicted of kidnapping, child endangerment, false imprisonment, and numerous other charges. She was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Her confession led to the identification of 2 other crew members who had helped her at various stages, both of whom were eventually arrested and convicted as accessories. Atlantic Cruise Lines faced a reckoning of its own. The Roberts family's civil lawsuit, settled for an undisclosed but reportedly unprecedented sum, was just the beginning. Multiple government investigations revealed systemic security failures across the cruise industry, leading to sweeping new regulations for passenger vessels, particularly regarding the protection of minors. Key card systems were modified to require parent, guardian authorization for children under 12 to access certain areas of ships. Security camera coverage was mandated for all public areas, with strict requirements for maintenance and backup systems. Crew background checks were intensified, with international cooperation to prevent the kind of oversight that had allowed Vasquez to work despite her troubled history. For Lily Roberts herself, the journey back from trauma was long and ongoing. She underwent extensive psychological treatment, gradually rebuilding her life with the unwavering support of her family. The details of her recovery remained private, as the Roberts family fiercely protected their daughter's right to heal outside the public eye. 3 years after her rescue, Karen Roberts released a book about the family's ordeal, with proceeds dedicated to a foundation they established to improve safety for children on cruise ships and to support families of missing children. There were many dark days when we thought we would never see our daughter again, when we nearly lost all hope, she wrote in the book's conclusion. But something in us refused to give up. What happened to Lily could have happened to any family. One moment of inattention, one predator in a position of trust, and a child vanishes. Our mission now is to ensure that no other family ever experiences what we went through. The doll that had led to Lily's rescue became both evidence and symbol, a reminder of the twisted obsession that had caused so much suffering, but also of the relentless determination of a family who never stopped searching, of investigators who refused to let the case grow cold, and of a young girl whose resilience continues to inspire long after the headlines have faded. For those of us who follow such cases, who seek to understand both the darkness that humans are capable of and the light that emerges in response, Lily's story serves as a powerful reminder. Behind every missing person statistic is a human being, with people who love them, who deserve answers, who will never stop searching for truth. If you've found value in this account, please consider supporting our ongoing efforts to bring attention to similar cases by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And remember, if you have information about a missing person, no matter how insignificant it might seem, coming forward could make all the difference between tragedy and reunion, between questions that haunt for a lifetime and answers that, however difficult, allow healing to begin.